No, nobody.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest show. I wanted to go on something a little bit more classic for us because in the past, what we had been doing was we did lots of reviews on shows to be able to get you guys on the same page as we are, because I believe there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so what seemed to come across the best was we would give you our viewpoint as psychics, experts, and people who've dealt with this kind of stuff on a regular basis from our perspective. And that seemed to really take off, and it really gelled with most of you. And we got away from that because there were people who were asking particulars who wanted to know about specific things. So now we're going to go back to it with a proviso. We can't really go back to Ghost Adventures because, and you're going to think I'm lying about this, but this is the truth. We can't show Zach Bagans in a bad light. That's not to say that we don't want to, because he doesn't goof himself. He does. We just can't. Every time I try to show just how much of a goober he is, they get upset, and then Travel Channel will get sicked on us. And the only parts that they want us to remove from the Ghost Adventures footage that we're showing, even though we're actually within the DMCA rules, the copyright claims aren't valid, is anything that shows him to be a dick. I'm telling the gospel truth. I actually modified one of the videos, which was on their 2017 Halloween special, 5 times, following every one of their rules to its precise end. And they just got through sending out another strike at us, even though it was invalid. I disputed it, but at halfway through said, screw it. I don't need this. You guys don't need this. If by now you guys don't know that Zach Bagans is a dick, I can't explain it to you anymore completely. So I took the video off. It's gone. And we're going to go on to talk about other series out there that are far more pressing and do carry a considerably more importance than what we're dealing with Zach Bagans and sending Aaron perpetually into danger. If something happens to Aaron, we've already said that we've seen it coming. Almost everybody who's been on the show sees it coming. You all see it coming. That's probably part of the reason why everybody likes to watch the damn show, because they know at some point in time somebody is going to get done in, or at the very least somebody's going to end up injured, and then Zach is going to have to figure out how to blame someone else for his own pernicious attempts to get famous. So today, Joel is with us. Hello, Joel.
Hello.
So,
yeah, I just got my hair retwisted, so it's drying.
Okay, and the big thing today that we're going on to is going to be the new anthology series, which is in its 2nd season, so it's not quite as new as it could be, called Haunted on Netflix. Now, I'm pretty sure quite a few of you have access to this, and the very first episode in the very first season is called The Woman in White, and it has a lot of very triggering moments in it for me, because my life literally ended up being the way it is because of something similar. And it's a true horror fest. My biggest complaint about this series we'll leave until the end. We'll talk about that at the end. But Joel, did you get a chance to rewatch it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what did you think?
I thought this like his account of what happened is pretty amazing. I feel bad that somebody had to go through this kind of thing. I don't know what happened at the motel where he stayed at, where it originated from, where he first encountered.
Well, let me fill everybody in. This really quick. So for the people who are probably not as fresh on it, I did take a whole bunch of notes. Let me get to them. Flip. Yeah, I'm a note taker when the mood strikes me. So, and I should point out that on IMDb it is a 4.5 out of 10 for this series. On Rotten Tomatoes, it is a 2 out of 10. But that's with the professional critics, not with the people. I didn't go to look at
it. This show is amazing. I had to watch it in little snippets. I think it was like only 7 episodes or 8 episodes. It wasn't that many episodes per season. And all I know is I had to watch it in sections. I couldn't just sit through and watch the whole season in one sitting. It was a bit
Hi, Scarcity. How's it going? Okay,
rough.
so here's the gist of it. The gentleman named Jason Hawkins, fantastic name by the way. Love Hawkins as a name. He his when he was a youngster, about 3 or 4 years old, he and his family, because they tended to move around. His father was an alcoholic, but also a truck driver. He had to go wherever the work was. And one day when he was about 4 years old, they were in a diner, and this person chases a naked person out of a motel with an axe and then finishes him. Now, this is one of those things where if you are even a little bit gifted or not, the trauma of it can so mark you that you become visible to the other side. It's one of those traumatic occasions where you now light up as a beacon. And this person tried to get into the diner where they were eating, and all they did was just barricade themselves against the door so that the guy couldn't get in until the cops got there and shot this guy dead. So Jason actually showed some of the pictures that he'd drawn. I don't even know how they kept him, but it really traumatized him for life.
Yeah.
And then they moved to a hotel sometime later to follow his father's work, where they were going to do an extended stay. Now, you find this out later, so I'm sorry if you haven't seen this. Spoilers. He tells the story as he discovered it, but I'm going to have to tell the story in the order it occurred. A woman was staying at the hotel, and she killed her 4 children in the bathtub. Well, I thought it was 4. Okay, well, her children in the bathtub. She slit their throats in the bathtub and left them there. Then went to the closet in the main room and hung herself. After slashing her own throat. You actually can look this up. It's pretty hideous. I'm very grateful that they didn't go to the original hotel or whatever and shoot this, because it probably would have been out of my mind watching the reenactment. I was already bad enough watching the reenactment. And
the reenactment was pretty bad.
Jason and his family moved in right after they'd finished fixing the tiles and everything so that the place wasn't a gore fest and smelled of it. And they didn't know. They had no idea. It took a few weeks, but eventually things started to happen to Jason. The closet began to open on its own. He began to sense something was there. And the first night that something came out after him, it affected him so severely, he fainted. He fainted dead away. And he went to tell his father. And his father's first reaction was to beat the ever-loving shit right out of him. Just beat him mercilessly. He also found out that his mother was aware of what was going on, because Jason went to take a bath and the water turned to gore. And he jumped out covered in blood. And his mother just cleaned it up, looked at him like she understood, like this was not that big of a mystery to her, but she wasn't saying anything. Oh, my blood pressure is going up, and I'm trying not to have a panic attack just thinking about this.
Yeah. He said it went on for 6 years.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that really bothered me the most is the fact of how his parents dealt with it. Like, if one of my kids was going to come up and say, "Hey, Dad, there's something in my closet coming after me. It's not pretty," I would listen. I think that's the one thing that stands out the most to me is that part. And yeah.
And this hotel is actually in the outskirts of Anaheim. Almost socketing into Santa Ana. And it also started making him sleepwalk. because he was getting no rest whatsoever. He would try to escape in his sleep. And everybody he told, they didn't care, didn't help. What was worse probably than anything else was the fact that he went to the church. Now here, I don't want to create a narrative where I'm going to tell you the church is never helpful, but I'm going to tell you that the church, going to a church and getting baptized and all this other stuff is not armor against evil, because just like anything else out there, just like it, like if you say, well, hey, I'm wearing a suit of armor, nobody's going to be able, no lunatic who says hail Satan is going to be able to kill me. That's wrong. There's ways to get around things. And this, he went and prayed, and he went to Bible studies, and he was baptized, and he thought this was going to help, and it didn't. And what happened was he started cursing God. He was angry at God. Now, to give you an idea of how much this resonated with me was when all this stuff kept going down and I had nobody to help me, I tried to commit suicide. And when I didn't succeed twice, it felt like God had rejected me. So I totally can understand how this kid was feeling. Okay. And it's not to feel like you're trapped inside your own skin because something it won't leave you alone and it wants to terrorize you is like nothing I can describe. I mean, I can give you insight into it by giving you a few explanations, or you can watch this and you can get a very visceral understanding of what it's like. But it's still not the same thing as living it and knowing that there isn't any way out. Maybe I'm just crazy, because when I failed, it lit a spark inside me. Instead of going, I'm going to blame everybody and everything.
No.
I just got mad. I just got really mad, and then turned into a righteous fury. And I instead of crumbling in on myself, I turned into something else. But that's not always the options that these people have, because this is a kid, just a normal kid. He's not even psychic. There's no gifts involved in him. I looked at his aura, but it's as good as I could. One of the downsides to this anthology series is they put these filters on the main room where they do the interviewing, and it really screws up anything I can see, anything I can sense. I got nothing off this guy, just that this thing was after him consistently, and it knew it had a connection with him.
Yeah, so like you said, this happened to him for 6 years. They moved in a week after those events, and they moved to Bakersfield, and it followed them.
It did more than just follow him.
Yeah, that's a crazy attachment. Like that's one I've heard of attachments and stuff, but that one was a bit much. I just couldn't believe it.
On top of being attached to him and chasing him to Bakersfield, this thing tried to get him killed with a car. Yeah. But on the failed attempt, when the car hit him, they went to his friend's mother, and she's sitting there stuck in the chair with a cigarette burnt down to nothing, staring dead ahead as his friend is saying, hey mom, we got to get him into got to get Jason to the hospital. And she looks right at Jason and goes, you should be dead, because this thing had taken her over. That's how strong some things can be.
Yeah, it was a bit much. It was a lot.
Now, I want to, before we run on past this, the mother getting taken over. All right. My family was affected by this thing that had followed me from Wales. Almost everybody in my life was affected. Okay. So, and it's not like, so, I mean, Joel can tell you that they acted unreal at times. My brother, mother, my sister, when she was around. I mean, I'll shut up and I'll just let you talk, Joel, because that's one of those things I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about it. We've talked to a couple people that's had attachments and stuff, and is this one is just a little bit more daunting. This was probably one of the strongest one I've ever heard of. It's just because of like the length of time that was in that place, and the simple fact, like, you figure after a week, sometimes it might go away, but after they didn't, I don't like. How do you not have somebody come bless that place? And the guy said, "I'm surprised you lasted this long."
That was when they moved out.
Everybody that was living there knew what had happened, and they just didn't say anything. It was like, well, we don't have to deal with this. Somebody else is going to have to deal with that. They're dealing with it now. With kids, how could you? I mean, they just let them move in there with kids, and it was just like, that's okay. And and just like have that attachment go through. I don't know if the friend's mother was gifted. I would imagine so. But it was just weird to like I like he had to have known like when that happened who that was, because he dealt with that for 6 years. And I think didn't wasn't there a point where she said something about wanting him dead or something like that before the accident? I don't remember. I can go back and look.
Yeah, it was all about he should be dead, and the whole stalking thing, chasing after him, etc. It was she got the impression when his mother was it mother had said something along those lines as well. I'd have to go and watch it again, but this is an episode of clear cut. There's an attachment, and nobody wants to help. Everybody, it's always somebody else's problem.
Nobody wants it. Is if we don't acknowledge it, it's going to go away. That's the whole thing that everybody was trying to do. Is hello, Kitty. Yes.
Yeah. Now later on in the anthology series,
it's
yeah, they're gonna start spouting that same thing, and it's not true. There's no such thing.
Just muted me.
There is no such thing as you ignore it and it goes away.
Here again.
Yeah. I was just saying there's no such thing as, and later on in the anthology series, at least 3 more times I know they're going to cover this, where they say, "Oh yeah, we just don't talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it goes away." It doesn't.
The one family from Southeast Asia that had that lived in a house.
The Philippines, people from the Philippines.
Oh, that's right. There was some Philippines. Yeah, I remember that because it was like, well, if you talk about it, you give it strength. Well, if you don't talk about it, it's going to get strength anyway because it's going to terrify people because you can't talk about it.
Yeah, talking about it talking about it doesn't make it stronger. Talking about it makes it so that you're educated.
Yeah,
and but that's the thing where people will simply just go, well, if you ignore it, it'll go away. From the time I was 5 until I was 23, when I or 22 rather, when I duked it out for the last time with the thing that came after me. Trust me, I told nobody. I told nobody.
You didn't even tell me.
No, because as everybody said, if you don't talk about it, it loses power. Just pray. It doesn't work. It doesn't. I told nobody, and I'm telling you, there's no way. 17 years I kept my lips zipped. Okay, talk. Always talk. Tell someone. I tried telling my family when I thought they would listen about littler things. They didn't. It gets worse. You have to find an expert. And of course, I was stuck until I was 18 because I couldn't find an expert. Plus, this was the 80s. And that's when this kid was dealing with his same stuff. The 80s. There isn't a whole lot of help. Now there's help. I swear we're still free. Okay, so if people find that they're coming across this kind of thing, please. And comes to the end of the show where the guy's going, he
actually died. He actually
died.
died. He struck in the parking lot for where he was working at, I think he said.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw her, and it was weird because, you know, you figure it would end there because theoretically he died. So, you know.
But then he says, I saw her recently.
Yeah, and it was his wife was like, "Oh, you haven't seen her anymore, right? Since then." And he was like, yeah, like last week." Excuse me, a few days ago.
Now, like every one of these shows, they all end with nothing resolved. I'm praying. I would really like to actually send a message or contact Netflix and ask if they extend any kind of an olive branch or offer for assistance or whatever, or they just hand the person, hey, here's $60,000 for your story. Come and tell the story and then get lost.
Look, the thing about it is, and I'm going to say this, and and this is not my point of view, but this is I'm gonna say for most people, uh, uh, it's she had two kids. She had two kids. Is just showed her with her two kids. But the one thing that nobody really wants to deal with that. Nobody wants to. They just want the story. They just want the scary part of it. They don't want to hear about any resolve or anything like that. A lot of people don't because they want it to be like that. I think I was watching I was listening to a podcast called Limestone. They just started doing that on Facebook Watch. But they say it best in that they want it to be a mystery and the public just wants it to be unsolved. They don't want it to be solved. They're not interested in that. It makes it more interesting if it's a mystery. And I think that's how Netflix is handling this whole situation. Where and not like I don't they didn't even give us any like what is going on in these people's life since they were on the show. They don't talk about it at all. And when it comes to the second one, is it the second one episode? Yes, the second episode on the first season. It really bothers you. And even on Reddit, there was like a real big community on Reddit that was just like couldn't believe what was going on. So, but we'll get to that one next week. But that's exactly what it is.
Well, actually, I was planning on jumping over the ones that are not metaphysical to just go to the third one, which is.
But the second one has some metaphysical stuff in it.
Okay, then we'll cover it
a little bit. So we'll talk about it, and then
right.
we might touch on it. But there's like a lot of things about that one.
We should probably do the next episode. The next episode should probably be the second and third one. Really,
yeah, because we could talk about like the stuff that happened. Because I think there was like that whole it's not this episode,
right?
But there was some darker stuff going on in that one where it seems like there was like a calling for. But
so
this one it really struck me like the dude was like really distraught about the whole thing.
Yeah, and running. Wait. Remember the running. He ran for years. He ran away from home and he didn't stay in any place for very long, and it didn't help.
Yeah.
So, all right, go on.
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. But it's definitely one of those things like you could really tell that it really bothered him and his wife, because like now she knows, because some of these people, they don't know about this stuff, and this is why they bring them onto the show so they could talk to their friends and family about what was going on. And oh man,
it is a big thing. It's almost like, and I'm sorry to use the simile here, but it's almost like coming out, like coming out of the closet, because it is in its own sense, it's coming out of the closet. You're explaining that something that inexplicable has happened to you, and you're now putting yourself in a very vulnerable position. Yeah. And people are going to judge you for this stuff, and it's very scary because you don't know how they're going to receive it. But it truthfully speaking, until you say something, things cannot get better. And as much as I hope these people have found the help that they need, it's really important also that if stuff like this is occurring in your life, that you tell. And I can't tell you how many shows we've done about children being the focus of a lot of these things that come out of the woodwork. When we're kids, we're very, very vulnerable. When we're adults, we're usually far less vulnerable. In some cases, however, you can still be very vulnerable because you may have not learned how to use your gifts, which is part of the reason why these things tend to scare you oogie boogie away from the thing. So that you don't have the drive or the motivation to throw yourself into the veil and figure out what you're doing.
I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the shows I was watching, that was one of the things that they was having problems with. There's a lot of people don't that have gifts that don't know how to use them, uh, and it becomes a problem. But we can get to that on one of those shows.
Oh yeah,
But
there's we have at least 3 of them as I know in this series that where that actually is a thing.
so the psychological, so I think what happens is the psychological damage that happened when he was a kid with the person with the hatchet and finish off. That's, we could say that was definitely the starting point. That scar there, that open wound, especially with the child and not being able to carrying on that.
Sorry, pause. In the middle of when he's explaining this, when they show his face, I'm not a medium, but I got chills because I could see, despite the filter, his aura reflecting what happened. And so it's pretty scary. Sorry, go ahead, Joel.
Yeah, it obviously has it affected him, and that right there, that damage, that fracture to one's soul, uh, it, so if you think of like your aura being like a smooth crystal, you can't climb on there unless you have suction cups. It's harder to climb on there. It's harder for something to get their fingers in there to grab a hold of, or even to get through. Let's just put it that way. And once you have that fracture there, that wound, uh, and it doesn't get healed, it's still there. It's like a gaping wound, and it allows like that infection to get in. And these for this instance, that spirit, especially since it was only like a week after, and they moved in a week later,
No.
That energy was still there, and it was able to, I think, attach and feed off of them. And once that happened, became its source of why it's still around. It might not have been that way. It might not have stayed there if they didn't have like a child. I mean, because that's a lot of energy, and he was preteen. It looked like at the time that's like a lot of hormones are going. Um, you're going through a lot of hormones, a lot of energy, is going off. Your body's like building, so your body is like using up a lot of energy. It's getting a lot of energy and putting out a lot of energy to help you grow. And I think that's how, after it got used to it and after it knew, it kind of came attuned to it, to him, it made it easier for it to keep feeding on it.
And the anchor point to him, I couldn't tell you because once again, with the filters that they put on the main interview room, I couldn't see anything really. I mean, I could see that he has an aura, but once it gets to a certain point, because of the filters, it completely screws it up. And I would like to have been able to tell you what the attachment point was by staring at the guy, but I'm at a loss. So all I could tell you is that the attachment point was it seemed along similarity lines because it was a child. That was it. But it usually when it's a spirit following, it's following for other reasons or a particular similarity. Without knowing that, without being able to see closer, I couldn't see what point of focus the thing was anchored into. Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, sorry. Sarabi is. Oh.
Yes.
Sorry. So the puppy is talking to the cat that's in the wagon, and the cat won't come out, and so she's upset about it because she wants to, maul the cat. That's how she plays with the cat. Um, but yeah, no, it's that you got to take care of your emotional, psychological health, and at that time in the 80s, they weren't that kind of stuff wasn't even thought of.
Oh, on top of all that, Ronald
That
Reagan had
trauma.
just gotten through closing all of the federally funded loony bins because
Bingo.
he's a dick, and we can put him right up there on the wall of dicks, right next to Zach Bagans. Oh, we have an insane asylum that was out here that was closed down in the 80s and destroyed. It's basically out on 90th Street West. I've been out there, and the place has a vibe that's all about desperation and sadness, but it's nothing so tragic as to like death and horror and people dying like this. When you flush the places out that are designed to help people get the help they need, then okay, being dead doesn't solve your problems. Take it from a guy who has, because of depression from these things chasing after him, and a family that was affected by stuff just like this, that on the other side there's no answers. You just take the problems with you. That's all that happens is you take the problems that you've got here and you go there, and they're unresolved, and you're stuck in a holding pattern until you can get through. And that's what happens. And then a lot of the times they don't even realize they're dead. Then you throw a kid into the mix who's got all this energy, and this lady who's simply wants to lay there in her death state and just cogitate the pain that she was in. Because that's the thing, when you're dead in a death state like that, and this is why I don't like to sense them, and this is the reason why Chris, the shaman, has a problem with it, is because they're constantly hurting. And you're feeling that when they're in their death state, that's where they're locked. If anybody who's watching the show has ever been depressed, and I mean, you're talking that deep down core depressed that doesn't go away, and you don't feel like you're ever going to get better. Imagine that 100 times over, and it doesn't end. You can't sleep. You don't eat. There's no distractions. Just that.
That becomes their existence.
That is who you are. That is what you stay until something, somebody, someone comes in and either frees you, or if you get serious enough, they don't free you. They just beat you until you dissolve, and then you haven't got enough cohesion to maintain yourself in that death state and hurting like that. And that's not the ideal solution. That really isn't. The ideal is having somebody like Janice or Chris move them over. It is an unideal situation where you call on Joel and I, because these things have become such gargantua problems. They're so strong, they're so monstrous that they've decided that they like being like this. And I'm telling you that I've encountered things that really like this kind of misery, and then they try to visit it on others because that misery, they suck that misery and find it sweet. And it becomes power, and they become stronger and more cognizant, and they can think better. And it has its own little pernicious rewards. And God, I'm triggering myself, and I'm giving myself the headache just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's not good. It's never good.
It's the worst. And this series is probably a great way to open up the entire narrative, to just open up the conversation to something beyond ghosts, because ghosts, that's where we started with Ghost Adventures, to try and get you guys to understand things. But there are worse things than ghosts. We've had a couple of shows on them, but we never had any tie-ins to other people's shows, and we will in the future. Oh my God, this series is
a good one.
This series is going to launch us into being able to have a visual aid into some of the things that we've been talking about. Like, oh my gosh, you were asking me about the Banshee the other day. Remember that? We were going to discuss that. You couldn't remember that? And
yeah. It's funny because as soon as you said it, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, that's right. Joe didn't want to remember that one just because I kept that in our rear view
I was,
where it should have been.
and it's not literally a real banshee. It's we should call it a wailing spirit. An actual banshee is usually a hearth spirit. Now that we've learned, it's usually a hearth spirit that is very sad because they know that one of their family members is going to die, and they're crying, not out wailing, not screaming to the heavens, none of that stuff.
Yeah.
But a wailing spirit that's chasing after you because it doesn't like you around, that's a little different. That the closest thing to that would be La Llorona. And I know that's a more of an urban legend in the United States, but in Mexico, it's actually a thing. And it's the closest thing that exists to the legend of the banshee, as opposed to the reality of the banshee.
Didn't they have one of those in this series?
I'll have to watch everything again because
No, I don't think so.
I'm fresh off the second season, and the second season was wow. I mean, really wow. I didn't think they could top the first one. But just to give you an idea, they get a demonic possession, what it looks like outwardly, or sorry, inwardly, for somebody who's they put through conversion therapy for, like we can beat and rape the gay out.
Oh yeah. Oh, I forget. Ooh, yeah. I see.
So this is the reason why I can't watch V for Vendetta twice, because like I told you,
I
V for Vendetta, if that ever came to be, Joel, they'd be coming after me, okay? And we know that V was probably bi, just like I am, so it's like I've got the shakes from it, right?
yeah. I forgot all about. I tried to erase that one from my memory. Actually, I forgot all about that one. That one was not. That was one of those.
That's a physical horror, not a paranormal.
Yes, and it was. Oh my gosh. That was so.
And there was a touch of spiritual in there, though, which was something.
Well, yeah, because it was happened in that time when conversion therapy was okay by.
No, I mean, as in spiritual, remember the butterfly comes to him.
Oh, yeah.
When he's locked in, so that's like saying you'll make it, kid, don't worry. But it's not going to be over just yet. And then
That
of course you also have
be seen as divine intervention, like the sign. Yeah.
So you have a demonic possession, you have conversion therapy, you have a revenant, the revenant. Oh crap! If we hadn't seen revenants, I mean, we've never been targeted by them, but you know them when they pass because they're pissed. And this guy, there's got the revenant, and then there was the gentleman who's a medium, Oscar, the last episode, calling himself cursed. See, and that brings it back to, it's really hard to know sometimes if somebody's being haunted, or a place is being haunted, or if that person's just gifted, and that because if every place they go to is haunted, either they're the most unlucky person on the planet, or it's you.
It's like the joke, with the blind. It's like, goes to the doctor. What does it hurt? Your finger's broken.
Uh-huh.
It's not the place. It's you.
and that is something that totally can happen, which is the reason why I was always so happy when we would go. We would be in places where I didn't have to worry about that kind of thing, and it would be not until I finally moved out on my own where I could create my own space to be safe in, and was totally safe.
Yeah.
Mediums work in the opposite way. They set boundaries, and it's okay if people enter so that they can talk to them. But for me and my family, it's a no-go, because we're not built to do that kind of thing. Maybe my kids will be at some point in time. Maybe they'll learn how to do that. But for me, I wasn't. If I was ever meant to do that, it got screwed up somewhere. And I simply don't have it in me now.
That series is rough. Like I said, I have problems sitting through. Like I think the first night I watched like maybe 4 of them, and then I had to pull out. I had to eject, Goose. Eject. I turned it. I just couldn't. I just couldn't after 4 of them. I was like, that's enough suffering for me, right there.
When the second series came out, the season, I should say, the second season came out, Karen and I were watching it a little bit sparingly because we didn't know what we were going to get into. We remembered the first season and how rough it could be.
Which is funny because like I didn't even know that was a thing until season 2 came out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just looking to see who's actually watching the show. Doesn't look like many people.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Oh, my mouse is working again. Yay! I don't know what's going on with my mouse. I have a bad connection on my mouse. How many people?
Well, it might just be wearing out. That's why I usually get a newer one every couple of years. But yeah, so this brings us back to YouTube. So YouTube has, on top of allowing people to do copyright strikes that are legal, because who cares? They have changed the algorithm so that what we're dealing with here is your chances to find us if you're looking for help or paranormal experts is ridiculously curtailed because it's hard to find advertisers who want to advertise around us. And which is not to say that you guys wouldn't come back to watch this and there's going to be ads all over it. Because I have gone back and turned my ad blocker off and watched, and wow, we're spammed with the darn things, especially Toyota. Oh my God, Toyota. Because I guess it was, they heard that once I was run over by a Toyota in the 80s. So what a feeling.
Stop.
Just joking. So, but yeah, there's and we're getting and local Honda commercials, etc. So apparently there are some people who do want to advertise, and I took down a whole bunch of videos because they had contents that I knew they were going to eventually want to delve into. So the algorithm is now set up to benefit the big guys like Disney and CBS and anybody who's really big, and it's to our detriment. Our show's going to be hard for you to find. Not that it's impossible for you to find, but let me give it to you this way. There's 210 subscribers to this channel, and this channel's been going for about 4 years. Okay, 4. So you get an idea what our audience size is that we're reaching. Even though we on a pretty regular basis have been putting out videos, and these things are unlike almost anything else that's out there, because what we're doing is we're actually telling you not only what we see, but what is valid and what is not. And we're even telling you that this stuff is not insurmountable. Right down to the lady in white. This episode, I'm going to tell you, it would take me probably no more than 20 minutes to solve this problem. This lady is extremely dangerous to people who don't have any abilities or are unprepared to deal with her. And you could go to hi Pammy. Yeah, you could go to church endlessly, but this lady there's probably not a whole lot left of her except for her suffering. That's all that's left in there. It's an echo of her suffering, and it's not going to let go until she sees more children die for whatever reason that's out there. I could surmise that the reason that the children were killed was in order to get back at the father. That's not to be horrible, but that is the number one reason that women will kill their children is either they will say it's social pressure, or it's because they want to get back at the mate. And so
sometimes it's to escape if they feel like there's no other way to.
Whoa! And Joel is off. He'll be back. That was weird. He was probably about to say something really important. Hope that wasn't because the power went out. They're having fires up there. Hell, they're having fires down here too. Yeah. Yeah, we're surrounded by fires. One of the things that has always surprised me about California and the way we use water, we have a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it. And instead of finding some way to dump it all over the plants that will produce oxygen from carbon dioxide and help us out, they decide that we need to sit on it and let fires happen because that's more sensible. You okay?
Yes. I'm so sorry. Okay, I'm back.
I'm sensing you're about to say something important.
Yeah. Sometimes, you hear that they feel like they're in a predicament where they can't escape like an abusive relationship, and they'll actually um, to keep their kids from suffering or themselves from suffering any longer, they will actually take their children's life in their lives too, which is a thing. I mean, I know it's not a correct thing to do, but sometimes it's one of those things where it's been known to that was the case.
So, and this lady's pain just it wouldn't end, and she's just going to keep on reliving the desire to, get back at her husband. Is what I'm guessing, or her mate who's left them, and so that keeps on being a stream of killings.
Yeah. Ray. Anyway.
So the
So sorry.
you want to take a second?
I'm okay.
Okay. So with ghosts of this type, it's a simple matter of either breaking their cohesion, finding their anchor point, or finding a medium who can actually get them to discuss and become more aware. That's actually a specialty of mediums, is being able to influence them with enough light and energy that it wakes them up, sort of like slapping them awake from their doldrum and making them more cognizant. I actually was able to watch this happen around Janice when she went to a place where there was a lady had actually committed suicide in a bathtub. And because Janice was there, she was becoming more aware.
Mm-hmm.
Around me, they don't become more aware. They just become more feisty. Hence the reason why I don't tend to be the person I want. It's like, can I not go in first kind of thing?
Yeah.
It's like the first person that should go in is a medium like Amy Allen. They can they figure out what's going on. You let them piece it together and Sherlock the works. And then if they need help, they can call for somebody like ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up a little bit early. And next week, we'll be doing the next episode, which is called The Slaughterhouse, which is season 1, episode 2, The Slaughterhouse. I know I looked over all of them. The third one is called Demon in the Dark, which I can't wait to get to that one. That one we have never, ever had to speak about before of this type, because there's rarely somebody as stupid as this person we're going to be discussing in 2 weeks rather. Although we have known people who acted like that kind of person, they never actually went full warlock, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you like what we do here, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and be sure to hit that bell notification. Once again, we're going to be doing these every Sunday. We might actually add another show in like on Wednesdays, but we're definitely going to be doing these shows every Sunday at 5. We're only going to be on for about an hour, possibly a little bit more, maybe 5 extra minutes. And we will if people ask for it, go back to doing open discussions. But for the most part, we're going to want to cover this entire series because it is groundbreaking in that it will give us the ability to open a narrative, to explain things to you if you have questions. Tell your friends. Remember, we do this all for free. But if you do want to donate, there is a PayPal button that you can send us money. Joel?
I'm good.
Y'all want to say goodbye?
Well, yeah, of course. Goodbye, everybody, and YouTube land. I hope you have a blessed day. Stay frosty.
Until next week, stay blessed, everybody.
Oh my gosh, I can